Everyone in the room held their breath as Margaret, the matriarch of the powerful Caldwell dynasty, handed her daughter-in-law a velvet box at the center of the ballroom. It was their 5th wedding anniversary. Guests expected diamonds. They expected a tearful toast. Instead, when Isabella opened the box, her face went pale. Inside wasn't a necklace or a ring. It was a stack of legal documents, clipped together with a single sticky note that read, "Get out." They thought they were discarding a penniless orphan. They didn't realize that by handing her those papers, they had just handed over the keys to their own destruction. This is the story of how the discarded wife became the one woman the Caldwells couldn't afford to lose. The chandeliers of the Caldwell estate were so bright they hurt Isabella's eyes. Crystal teardrops suspended from the ceiling, reflecting the faces of the city's elite. Senators, oil tycoons, and tech moguls, all sipping champagne that cost more than Isabella's childhood home. She stood by the grand staircase, smoothing the fabric of her emerald green gown. She had bought it specifically for tonight. It was her 5th wedding anniversary with Lucas. 5 years of navigating the shark tank that was the Caldwell family. 5 years of trying to prove to her mother-in-law, Margaret, that she was more than just a lucky charity case Lucas had picked up during his rebellious phase. "You look tense, Bella." A smooth, sickeningly sweet voice purred from behind her. Isabella didn't need to turn around to know it was Genevieve. Tall, blonde, and possessing a pedigree that dated back to the Mayflower, Genevieve was the woman Margaret had always wanted for Lucas. She was constantly hovering, like a vulture waiting for a gazelle to limp. "I'm fine, Genevieve," Isabella said, forcing a smile as she turned. "Just waiting for Lucas? Have you seen him?" Genevieve swirled her drink, a smirk playing on her red lips. "Oh, he's in the study with Margaret. Serious family business, I assume. I wouldn't interrupt if I were you." Isabella felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. Family business. After 5 years, she was still usually excluded from those meetings, despite the fact that she managed the charitable foundation that rehabilitated the Caldwell public image after the toxic waste scandal 3 years ago. She had scrubbed their name clean, yet she was still treated like hired help. Suddenly, the music, a live string quartet playing Mozart, died down. The heavy oak doors at the top of the staircase opened. Margaret Caldwell stepped out. At 60, Margaret was a terrifying figure. She wore her silver hair in a severe bun, and her eyes were like shards of flint. Beside her stood Lucas. He looked pale. He wouldn't meet Isabella's eyes. He stared fixedly at the railing, his knuckles white as he gripped it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Margaret's voice boomed without a microphone, echoing off the marble walls. "Thank you for joining us to celebrate my son's anniversary." The crowd applauded politely. Isabella's heart fluttered. Maybe this was it. Maybe tonight Margaret would finally accept her. Maybe Lucas had stood up for her in that study. Isabella took a step forward, a genuine smile beginning to form. Margaret descended the stairs slowly, Lucas trailing behind her like a ghost. She held a rectangular box, wrapped in deep blue velvet, in her hands. "Isabella," Margaret said, stopping 3 steps from the bottom. "Come here, dear." Isabella walked to the center of the room. The guests parted like the Red Sea, creating a circle of judgment. 5 years, Margaret said, her voice dropping to a theatrical hush that forced everyone to lean in. 5 years you have been attached to this family. We felt it was time to give you a gift that truly reflects your contribution to the Caldwell legacy. She extended the box. Isabella's hands trembled as she took it. It was heavy. "Thank you, Margaret. You didn't have to." "Open it," Lucas whispered hoarsely from behind his mother. His voice sounded broken. Isabella lifted the velvet lid. There was no jewelry inside, no heirloom brooches, no keys to a vacation home. Nestled in the silk lining was a thick, folded document. The header was visible even in the dim light. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Divorce papers. The silence in the room was absolute. A pin dropping would have sounded like a gunshot. Isabella stared at the paper, her brain refusing to process the words. Petitioner, Lucas Caldwell. Respondent, Isabella Caldwell. I don't understand, Isabella whispered, looking up at Lucas. Lucas. Lucas finally looked at her. His eyes were wet, but his jaw was set in a hard line of cowardice. I'm sorry, Bella. It's done. It's signed, Margaret announced, her voice dripping with triumph. She pulled a pen from her clutch and held it out to Isabella. We've been generous. There's a settlement check in there for $50,000, enough to get you a nice apartment in whatever district you came from. Sign it, accept the terms, and leave. Tonight. Tonight? Isabella choked out. But this is my home. This is my house, Margaret snapped, her mask of politeness slipping. You were a guest who has overstayed her welcome. You're barren, Isabella. 5 years and no heir. The Caldwell line cannot end with a dry well. The cruelty of the insult was like a physical slap. The crowd gasped, but no one stepped forward. No one defended her. Isabella looked at Lucas again. You're letting her do this? Because we haven't had a baby yet? We're only 27, Lucas. We have time. It's not just that, Lucas mumbled, looking at his shoes. I'm in love with someone else. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. Margaret smiled, gesturing to the crowd. Genevieve stepped forward, placing a possessive hand on Lucas's arm. She beamed, resting her other hand gently on her stomach. We're expecting a boy in the spring, Genevieve said softly, but loud enough for the front row to hear. The betrayal was complete. The husband, the mother-in-law, the rival. It was a perfectly orchestrated execution. Isabella looked at the pen Margaret was offering. She looked at the smirking Genevieve, the weak Lucas, and the hundreds of eyes watching her humiliation. She didn't cry. That was the most surprising part. The shock was so profound it froze her tear ducts. Instead, a strange, cold clarity washed over her. She reached into the box, bypassed the pen, and pulled out the papers. She flipped to the back page. $50,000? Isabella asked, her voice steady. It's more than you deserve, Margaret scoffed. You came to us with nothing. You leave with 50 grand. Consider it payment for your services. Isabella looked at the documents. Then she looked at the heavy velvet box. You're right, Margaret, Isabella said. I did come here with nothing, but I didn't spend the last 5 years doing nothing. She dropped the box on the floor. It landed with a dull thud. I won't sign, Isabella said. Then we will fight you in court, Margaret hissed, leaning in close, her perfume smelling of lilies and malice. And I will bury you. I have lawyers who cost more than your entire life's earnings. Take the check and go, or leave with nothing but the clothes on your back. Isabella looked at Lucas one last time. Is this what you want? Really? Just go, Bella, Lucas whispered, closing his eyes. Please. Isabella nodded slowly. She reached into the box, took the settlement check. The check meant to buy her silence, and slowly, deliberately, ripped it in half. Then she ripped it again. She let the confetti pieces fall onto Margaret's pristine marble floor. I'll leave, Isabella said, her voice rising so the entire room could hear. But keep your money. You're going to need every penny of it. She turned on her heel, the emerald dress swirling around her ankles, and walked toward the massive front doors. She didn't look back, even as the murmurs of the crowd exploded behind her. She walked out into the cold night air, shivering, heartbroken, and utterly alone. Or so she thought. The wind outside the estate was biting. Isabella walked down the long, winding driveway, her high heels clicking on the asphalt. She had no car. The driver had likely been instructed not to take her. She had no coat. She had left her purse inside in her haste to escape the suffocating gaze of the elite. She walked for 3 miles until she reached a 24-hour diner on the edge of the highway. Her feet were bleeding, the blisters raw against the expensive straps of her shoes. She sat in a booth, shivering. The waitress, a kind older woman with a name tag that read Betty, poured her a mug of black coffee without asking. "Rough night, honey?" Betty asked, eyeing the ball gown. "You could say that," Isabella whispered. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug. She had nowhere to go. Her parents had passed away years ago. That was part of why she had clung to the Caldwells so tightly. They were the only family she had. She borrowed Betty's phone to call the only person she could trust, her college roommate, Rachel. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Bella? Why are you calling from an unknown number? Are you okay?" "Rachel," Isabella's voice finally cracked. "They kicked me out. Lucas. He's having a baby with Genevieve." 30 minutes later, Rachel's battered Honda Civic pulled into the diner parking lot. Rachel, a fierce lawyer with messy curly hair and a disdain for the rich, stormed in and hugged Isabella so hard she squeaked. "I'm going to sue them," Rachel growled as she drove Isabella back to her small, one-bedroom apartment. "I'm going to sue them for emotional distress, for infidelity, for—" "I signed a prenup," Isabella said dully, staring out the window at the passing city lights. "A very ironclad one. Whatever I leave with is at their discretion. Margaret wasn't lying. If I fight them, they'll drag it out until I'm bankrupt." "So that's it?" Rachel hit the steering wheel. "You just let them win, after you fixed their foundation. Bella, you saved that family from the EPA investigation. You organized the charity gala that raised $10 million last year." "I know," Isabella said. "You did all the work, and Lucas took the credit. Margaret took the credit." Rachel sighed. "You have to have something on them. Everyone has skeletons." Isabella closed her eyes. "I just want to sleep, Rachel." For the next 2 weeks, Isabella lived on Rachel's couch. It was a humbling fall from grace. She went from silk sheets and personal chefs to a lumpy sofa and instant ramen. She applied for jobs, but it seemed Margaret's reach was long. Every interview she went to in the PR or non-profit sector ended abruptly. "We're sorry, but we've decided to go in a different direction." It happened 5 times. Margaret was blacklisting her. She was ensuring Isabella couldn't get back on her feet. One rainy Tuesday, Isabella was sitting in a coffee shop, scrolling through job listings on her cracked phone, when she saw a news notification pop up. "Caldwell Industries announces revolutionary new clean energy tech. Stock prices soar as Lucas Caldwell presents the Ether Project." Isabella froze. She clicked the link. There was a video of Lucas, standing on a stage, looking handsome and confident. Beside him was Genevieve, looking adoringly at him. "This project," Lucas was saying into the microphone, "has been a labor of love for 3 years. It is my personal vision for the future." Isabella felt the blood rushing in her ears. She dropped her phone. "That liar," she whispered. "Excuse me?" A man at the next table looked over. Isabella ignored him. She grabbed her phone and watched the video again. The schematics on the screen behind Lucas, the breakdown of the hydrogen fuel conversion. It wasn't Lucas's vision. 3 years ago, Lucas had been struggling. He was about to be removed as CEO by the board because he lacked innovation. Isabella, who had a background in environmental science before she became a trophy wife, had spent late nights in the library, sketching out ideas, doing the math, consulting with old professors under pseudonyms. She had created the framework for the Ether project. She had written the initial proposal. She had given it to Lucas to help him save his job. "Here," she had told him one night in bed. "Present this to the board. Tell them you've been working on it." "I can't take credit for your work, Bella," he had said then. "I don't care about credit," she had replied, kissing him. "I just want us to be safe. I want you to be the leader your mother wants you to be." He had taken the file. He had never mentioned it again. She assumed he had scrapped it, but he hadn't. He had kept it. He had developed it. And now he was launching it as his own, using it to secure his legacy and his new life with Genevieve. Isabella zoomed in on the video. In the corner of the slide presentation, there was a tiny logo, a small, stylized hummingbird. Isabella's breath hitched. When she drafted the proposal, she had watermarked every digital page with a tiny hummingbird, her mother's favorite bird. It was a habit she had from college to track her notes. Lucas hadn't even bothered to remove her watermark from the presentation slides. Rachel's voice echoed in her head. "You have to have something on them." Isabella stood up. The sadness that had weighed her down for 2 weeks evaporated. In its place was a burning, white-hot rage. They took her home. They took her husband. They mocked her inability to have a child. They blacklisted her from working. But they had made a fatal mistake. They forgot who the real brains behind the operation was. Isabella dialed Rachel. "Rachel," she said, her voice hard as steel. "Don't order takeout tonight. We're going to work." "What's up?" Rachel asked, sounding concerned. "I don't need a divorce lawyer anymore," Isabella said, walking out of the coffee shop into the rain, not even feeling the wetness. "I need an intellectual property lawyer, and I need to find Henry Baxter." "Henry Baxter?" Rachel gasped. "The corporate shark who hates the Caldwells more than anyone? He's the CEO of their biggest rival, Baxter Corp." "Exactly," Isabella smiled grimly. "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." Isabella returned to the apartment and dug through her old laptop, the one she kept from before her marriage. She prayed the cloud backup from 3 years ago was still accessible. It was. There it was. Project Ether.draft, final IC PDF, created October 14th, 2022. Author, Isabella Caldwell. But she needed more than just the file. She needed to trap them. The next morning, Isabella put on her best suit, one of the few things she had managed to grab before leaving the estate. She slicked her hair back. She put on dark sunglasses to hide the bags under her eyes. She walked into the glass skyscraper of Baxter Corp. "I'm here to see Henry Baxter," she told the receptionist. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Isabella said. She took a flash drive out of her pocket and placed it on the desk. "But tell him I have the source code for the Caldwell's new Ether project. And tell him I wrote it." The receptionist's eyes went wide. She picked up the phone immediately. 5 minutes later, Isabella was sitting in a corner office overlooking the city. Henry Baxter, a man in his 50s with a reputation for ruthlessness, sat across from her. He was swirling a glass of scotch, despite it being 10:06 a.m. "Mrs. Caldwell," Henry said, his voice gravelly. "Or is it Miss?" "It's Isabella," she corrected. "And I'm not here to exchange pleasantries, Mr. Baxter. I'm here to destroy my husband's company. Are you interested?" Henry leaned forward, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "You have my full attention." Henry Baxter didn't become a billionaire by being nice. He became one by smelling blood in the water. He sat in his leather chair, the flash drive Isabella had given him plugged into his laptop. For 20 minutes, the only sound in the office was the rhythmic clicking of his mouse and the hum of the air conditioning. Isabella sat perfectly still. She knew that if she fidgeted, she looked weak. If she looked weak, Henry would eat her alive. Finally, Henry leaned back. He took off his reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "It's brilliant," he admitted, his voice grudgingly respectful. "The fuel conversion ratios, the sustainability model. It solves the overheating issue we've been stuck on for 5 years. And you're telling me you wrote this?" "Check the metadata on the files," Isabella said calmly. "Check the creation dates, check the user logs, and look for the hummingbird watermark on page 42 of the schematics. It's embedded in the code." Henry typed for a moment, then stopped. A slow, shark-like grin spread across his face. Well, I'll be damned. A hummingbird. He looked at Isabella with new eyes. He didn't see the discarded wife anymore. He saw a weapon. "So what do you want?" Henry asked. "You want me to sue them? We can tie up the Ether project in litigation for years. It'll tank their stock, sure. But the Caldwells have deep pockets. They might settle, give you a few million to go away." "I don't want a settlement," Isabella said, her voice dropping an octave. "And I don't want money. Not yet." She stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the skyline where the Caldwell Tower stood tall and arrogant in the distance. "Lucas is planning to launch the Ether project at the Global Innovation Summit in 3 months, Isabella said. He's going to announce the IPO for the new energy division. The valuation is projected to be in the billions." "Correct," Henry said, swirling his scotch. "It's going to make them the most powerful family in the energy sector." "I want them to launch it," Isabella said, turning back to him. Henry raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? If we sue now, they'll spin it. They'll say I'm a bitter ex-wife trying to sabotage them. They'll pay me off quietly, rewrite the code just enough to claim it's original. And they'll still win," Isabella reasoned, her mind working faster than it ever had in the Caldwell estate. "But if we wait, if we let them go to the summit, if we let them present it to the world, to the investors, to the press, and then we pull the rug out?" Henry's eyes lit up. He understood. Maximum exposure. If the fraud is revealed after they've taken investor money, it's not just a lawsuit. It's federal fraud. It's prison time. It's the end of the Caldwell brand. "Exactly," Isabella smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I want to destroy the reputation Margaret holds so dear. I want to watch her legacy burn." Henry laughed, a dry, barking sound. "You're vicious, Mrs. Caldwell. I like it." He opened a drawer and pulled out a contract. "I'll hire you. Consultant. You'll work directly with my engineering team to verify the tech and prepare the counter-presentation. In exchange, when we acquire the Caldwell assets for pennies on the dollar, you get 10% of the company and the CEO position of the new division." 20%, Isabella countered. "And I want a full legal team to handle my divorce proceedings, separate from the corporate suit." Henry paused, weighing her up. 15. "And you get the best shark lawyer in New York, Marcus Sterling." "Deal," Isabella said. They shook hands. His grip was firm, hers was firmer. The next 3 months were a blur of transformation. Isabella didn't just work, she reinvented herself. With the advance Henry gave her, she moved into a high-security apartment downtown. She hired a stylist, not to look like a socialite, but to look like a CEO. The soft, flowery dresses Lucas liked were replaced by sharp, tailored suits in charcoal, navy, and blood red. She cut her long, wavy brown hair into a sharp, asymmetrical bob that accentuated her jawline. She spent her days in the Baxter labs, guiding the engineers who were in awe of her intellect. She spent her nights with Marcus Sterling, a lawyer so terrifying that grown men crossed the street to avoid him. Together, they built a case that was watertight. Meanwhile, the Caldwells were everywhere. They were on the cover of Forbes. Lucas and a heavily pregnant Genevieve were featured in Vanity Fair under the headline, "The Golden Couple, Birth of a New Era." Isabella forced herself to read every article. She taped the picture of Lucas's hand, resting on Genevieve's baby bump, to her bathroom mirror. Every morning, she looked at it while she brushed her teeth. It was her caffeine. It was her motivation. One afternoon, 2 weeks before the summit, Isabella ran into Genevieve at an exclusive boutique. It was accidental, or perhaps fate. Isabella was picking up her custom suit for the summit. Genevieve was looking at baby clothes. Genevieve didn't recognize her at first. When she did, her eyes widened, scanning Isabella's expensive clothes and sharp haircut. "Isabella?" Genevieve laughed, a nervous, tinkling sound. "My God, you look different. I heard you were working as a secretary or something?" Isabella smoothed the lapel of her crimson blazer. "Something like that. You look round, Genevieve." Genevieve placed a hand on her belly, smuggling instantly. "We're due next month. Lucas is so excited. He's finally getting the family he deserves. He's so stressed with the launch, though. Being a visionary is hard work." "I'm sure it is," Isabella said coolly, "especially when the vision is blurry." "What is that supposed to mean?" Genevieve snapped, stepping closer. "Look, Isabella, I know you're bitter, but don't make a scene. We won. You lost. Just accept it and move on. Maybe you can find a nice mid-level manager to marry. Someone more your speed." Isabella leaned in close. She smelled expensive perfume and insecurity. "Enjoy the launch, Genevieve," Isabella whispered. "Make sure you smile for the cameras. You'll want to remember how it felt to be on top." She walked out, leaving Genevieve frowning in the middle of the store. Isabella's heart was pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now, she just had to wait for the snap. The Global Innovation Summit in New York City was the Super Bowl of the tech world. The Javits Center was packed with thousands of investors, journalists, and industry titans. The air buzzed with the sound of networking and the clinking of champagne glasses. Huge screens projected the logo of the evening, Caldwell Energy. The future is now. Isabella arrived in a black limousine provided by Baxter Corp. She sat in the back with Henry. "You ready?" Henry asked. He was adjusting his tie, looking unusually giddy. "I've been ready for 5 years," Isabella replied. She stepped out of the car. The flashes of the paparazzi blinded her for a second. She heard the whispers immediately. "Who is that? Is that the ex-wife? She looks incredible. She's with Henry Baxter. What is going on?" Isabella walked the red carpet with her head held high. She wore a white structural suit that made her look like a modern-day knight. Her makeup was sharp, her lips a deep berry stain. She didn't smile. She wasn't there to charm, she was there to conquer. Inside, the ballroom was dimly lit, focused on the massive stage. Margaret Caldwell was holding court in the VIP section, wearing a silver gown that looked like armor. When she saw Isabella approaching with Henry, her glass of wine paused halfway to her lips. Isabella walked straight up to her. "Margaret," Isabella nodded. "You look expensive." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here? This is a private event for industry leaders, not specifically invited trash." "I'm Henry's guest," Isabella said smoothly. "And as of this morning, a minority shareholder in Baxter Corp. So I suppose I am an industry leader." Lucas appeared at Margaret's side. He looked tired. The stress of the lie was wearing on him. When he saw Isabella, he visibly recoiled. "Bella," he breathed, You shouldn't be here." "Happy anniversary, Lucas," she said softly. It was exactly 6 months since he had handed her the papers. "I wouldn't miss your big night for the world." Genevieve waddled up, clutching Lucas's arm. "Security," she hissed. "Get her out of here." "I wouldn't do that," Henry Baxter interjected, stepping up beside Isabella. "Unless you want to explain to the SEC why you're kicking out a representative of your largest competitor before the Q&A session. Bad optics, Lucas." Lucas put a hand on Genevieve's arm. "Let her stay. It doesn't matter. After tonight, we'll be untouchable." He looked at Isabella with a mix of pity and arrogance. "Watch and learn, Bella. This is what real success looks like." The lights dimmed. The show began. Isabella and Henry took their seats in the front row, directly across from the Caldwell family. Lucas took the stage to thunderous applause. He was charismatic, charming, the perfect golden boy. He walked through the presentation, showing charts and graphs. He spoke about the eureka moment he had late one night that led to the ether protocol. "I realized," Lucas told the mesmerized audience, "that the key wasn't to store the energy, but to circulate it continuously. A perpetual loop of clean power." Isabella watched, her face impassive. Those were her words. He was quoting her notebook verbatim. "And now," Lucas smiled, "I'd like to open the floor to questions before we unveil the prototype." Hands shot up. The questions were softballs. How will this change the market? What is the price point? Then Henry Baxter stood up. The room went silent. "I have a question," Henry boomed. He didn't need a microphone. "But I think my associate is better equipped to ask it." Henry gestured to Isabella. She stood up slowly. The spotlight swung to her. Her white suit glowed in the beam. "Hello, Lucas." Her voice was amplified by the mic she had been handed. It was steady and cold. "Isabella," Lucas laughed nervously into his headset. "I didn't know you had technical questions. Usually, you just handle the catering." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Margaret smirked from the front row. Isabella didn't flinch. "Actually, my question is about the source code for the thermal regulator. Specifically, the algorithm online 4500 of the core programming." Lucas blinked. Sweat beaded on his forehead. That's highly technical proprietary information." "It is," Isabella agreed. "But it's interesting, because in the patent filing you submitted yesterday, that algorithm contains a variable named Hummingbird 88. The room went deadly quiet. "Can you explain to the shareholders?" Isabella continued, her voice slicing through the silence like a scalpel. "Why the innovative code you wrote contains the nickname my mother gave me when I was 6 years old? A nickname you, specifically, have never used." Lucas froze. He looked at the teleprompter, but there were no answers there. It's a coincidence, a standard coding term." "Is it?" Isabella reached into her pocket and pulled out a remote. She pointed it at the giant screen behind Lucas. "Henry, if you would," she said. Suddenly, the beautiful graphics of the Ether project vanished. In their place, a video appeared. It was a screen recording. It showed a document being created. The timestamp was 3 years ago. Author, Isabella Caldwell. Project title, Ether. "This is the metadata from the original file," Isabella narrated, looking at the audience, ignoring Lucas. "As you can see, I wrote the entire framework while Lucas was on a ski trip in Aspen. I have the emails sending it to his private server. I have the voice notes of him asking me to explain the math to him because he didn't understand it. The crowd erupted. Journalists were shouting. Cameras were flashing rapidly. "This is a lie!" Margaret screamed, standing up. "She's faking it! Cut the feed!" "I'm not done," Isabella said, her voice rising. "Lucas, tell them about the fatal flaw." Lucas looked like he was about to vomit. "What?" "The flaw," Isabella said. "The one I fixed in my version, but... Oh, wait. I never sent you the patch for the overheating inhibitor, did I? I kept that on my hard drive." She looked at the prototype sitting under a glass case on the stage. It was humming softly. "If you turn that machine on to full power as you planned to do in 5 minutes," Isabella said calmly, "without my patch, the hydrogen core will destabilize. It won't explode, but it will melt down. It will destroy the unit and release a cloud of toxic sulfur gas into this room." Lucas backed away from the prototype. His fear confirmed everything. If it was his work, he would know she was bluffing. But he didn't know. He had no idea how the machine worked. "Turn it off!" Lucas screamed at the technicians backstage. "Shut it down! Now!" His panic was the confession. The crowd gasped. The stock price of Caldwell Industries, displayed on a ticker in the corner of the room, began to freefall. Isabella walked toward the stage. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her husband. "You wanted a divorce, Lucas," she said, her voice carrying over the chaos. "You wanted me to leave with nothing. But you forgot one thing. I was the one who made you look competent. I was the one who made you a leader. Without me, you're just a boy in a suit, holding a bomb you don't know how to defuse." The side doors of the ballroom burst open. A team of federal agents in windbreakers marked FBI marched in. Leading them was Marcus Sterling, Isabella's lawyer. "Lucas Caldwell," an agent shouted, stepping onto the stage. "Margaret Caldwell, you are under arrest for securities fraud, intellectual property theft, and corporate espionage." Margaret shrieked as an agent grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back. "Do you know who I am? I will have your badge." Lucas didn't fight. He slumped to his knees, defeated. He looked at Genevieve, who was standing in the VIP section, horrified. She took one look at the handcuffs, turned around, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. She wasn't going to stick around for a bankrupt felon. As they dragged Lucas past Isabella, he stopped. He looked at her, tears streaming down his face. "Bella," he choked. "Why?" "We were family." Isabella leaned in, close enough that only he could hear. "You gifted me divorce papers on our anniversary, Lucas," she whispered. "Consider this my return gift. Happy anniversary." She watched them drag him away. The flashes of the cameras were blinding, but this time Isabella didn't look away. She smiled. But the story wasn't over. As the chaos settled and Henry Baxter clapped her on the shoulder, Isabella felt a vibration in her pocket. It wasn't her phone. It was a burner phone she had received in the mail 2 days ago with no return address. She opened the flip phone. There was one text message. "You took down the pawn, but you haven't seen the king yet. If you want to know the truth about your parents' accident 10 years ago, come to the old shipyard at midnight. Come alone." Isabella's blood ran cold. The Caldwells were just the beginning. The champagne in the back of Henry Baxter's limousine tasted like victory. But to Isabella, it tasted like ash. Beside her, Henry was scrolling through his tablet, laughing as he read the headlines. "Caldwell Empire crumbles. CEO arrested on live stream." "The Woman in White, How Isabella Caldwell Toppled a Dynasty." "You're a legend, Isabella," Henry said, pouring himself another glass. "The board is already drawing up your contract. You're going to be the CEO of the new Sustainable Energy Division. You'll have a corner office, a 7-figure salary, and enough stock options to buy your own island. Isabella stared at the burner phone in her lap, her thumb hovering over the cryptic text message. You took down the pawn, but you haven't seen the king yet. If you want to know the truth about your parents' accident 10 years ago, come to the old shipyard at midnight. Come alone. Isabella, Henry asked, his smile fading. You don't look like someone who just won the lottery. I need you to drop me off, Isabella said quietly. At your apartment. The night is young. We have a victory party at the plaza. No, Isabella said, her voice firm. Drop me off at the corner of 4th and Main. I have an errand to run. Henry studied her face. He was a shark, but he knew when to stop swimming. He knocked on the partition. Driver, 4th and Main. He looked back at her. Whatever you're doing, Isabella, be careful. You just wounded a very large beast. The Caldwells are finished, but money like that doesn't disappear without a fight. I know, she said. 10 minutes later, Isabella was standing on a desolate street corner. The wind was howling, whipping her white suit jacket around her. She waited until the limo's taillights disappeared. Then she hailed a beat-up yellow taxi. The Brooklyn Navy Yard, she told the driver. The abandoned section near the dry docks. The driver eyed her through the rear-view mirror. That's not a place for a lady dressed like you, miss. Just drive, she said, handing him $100 bill. The ride was silent. Isabella's mind raced back 10 years. She was 17. Her parents, David and Martha, were driving home from a dinner party. It was a clear night. No rain. No ice. The police report said her father had fallen asleep at the wheel and driven off the embankment into the ravine. Isabella had never believed it. Her father was an insomniac. He never fell asleep early. But she was a grieving teenager with no resources. She had buried them, sold the house to pay the debts, and tried to survive. That survival led her to Lucas Caldwell. Was it all connected? The taxi dropped her off at the rusted gates of the shipyard. The fog was rolling in off the East River, thick and smelling of salt and decay. The only light came from a flickering street lamp that buzzed like an angry hornet. Isabella checked her watch. Midnight. She walked through the gates, her heels crunching on gravel. The silhouettes of massive, rusted cranes loomed over her like skeletal giants. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice was swallowed by the fog. "Keep walking," a voice rasped from the shadows of a shipping container. "To the edge of the dock." Isabella swallowed her fear. She walked forward until she was standing a few feet from the dark, churning water. A figure stepped out from behind a rusted pillar. He was an older man, perhaps in his 60s, wearing a trench coat that had seen better days. He held a lit cigarette in a shaking hand. His face was a road map of regret. Deep lines, sunken eyes, and a grey stubble that spoke of days without sleep. "Who are you?" Isabella asked, clutching her clutch bag like a shield. "Name's Cole," the man grunted. "Detective Silas Cole. Or used to be, before they took my badge. You sent the text?" "I did." He took a long drag of the cigarette and flicked it into the water. "I watched your performance tonight on the news. Ballsy. Taking down Margaret and Lucas like that. It gave me the courage to finally do something I should have done a decade ago." "What are you talking about?" Isabella demanded. "What do you know about my parents?" Cole reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope. It was stained with coffee and age. 10 years ago, I was the lead investigator on the crash that killed David and Martha. Distinctive, Cole said. "When I got to the scene, something was wrong. There were no skid marks. Your dad didn't break. That usually means a heart attack or sleep, but the autopsy showed he was healthy and pumped full of adrenaline. So I checked the car. The brake lines were cut. Clean. Precision work. Isabella felt the ground sway beneath her. It was murder. It was a hit, Cole corrected. Professional. But when I tried to file the report, my captain pulled me into his office. He told me the case was closed, ruled an accident. He told me if I pushed it, I'd lose my pension, my badge, and maybe my life. I had a wife then, a kid on the way. I took the bribe. I buried the file. He handed the envelope to Isabella. I'm dying, kid, Cole whispered, coughing into his fist. Cancer. Doctors say I got a month. I don't want to meet my maker with this on my soul. Isabella tore open the envelope. Inside were photos of the crash site, close-ups of the severed brake lines, and a bank transfer record. Her eyes scanned the bank document. A transfer of $500,000 to an offshore account linked to the police captain. The sender, Orion Holdings. Orion Holdings? Isabella frowned. I've never heard of them. You wouldn't have, Cole said. It's a shell company. But look at the signature on the authorization form. Isabella squinted at the faded photocopy. The signature was messy, arrogant script. Senator William Hearst? Isabella gasped. William Hearst wasn't just a senator. He was the front-runner for the upcoming presidential election. He was known as America's dad, a man of family values and clean politics. Why? Isabella whispered. Why would a senator kill my parents? They were high school teachers. They weren't just teachers, Cole said. They were landowners. Do you remember the plot of land your grandfather left them? The 20 acres in upstate New York? Yes, Isabella said. It was just woods. We sold it after they died to pay the mortgage. You sold it to a subsidiary of Caldwell Industries, Cole revealed. But before they died, your parents refused to sell. For months. They were offered millions, but your dad said no. He said he wanted to build a sanctuary there. And the Caldwells wanted it? Margaret Caldwell wanted it, yes, Cole nodded. But she wasn't the one pulling the strings. She was just the developer. The land. It sits on top of one of the largest lithium deposits on the East Coast. Essential for batteries. Essential for the Ether project you just exposed. Isabella's mind reeled. The Ether project. The technology she had helped build. It wasn't just a stolen idea. It was built on her parents' graves. But where does Senator Hearst fit in? Hearst is the silent partner, Cole said grimly. He pushes the legislation for green energy, subsidies the companies, and takes a cut of the profits. He needed that lithium mine to secure a deal with foreign investors. Your parents were in the way of $1 billion payout. So Hearst made a call. Margaret handled the logistics. Lucas was just the distraction. The distraction? Isabella felt sick. Why do you think the Caldwell heir married a penniless orphan? Cole asked, his voice full of pity. It wasn't a fairy tale, Isabella. It was a containment strategy. Margaret couldn't risk you looking into the land sale or the accident later in life. So she ordered Lucas to marry you, keep you close, keep you grateful, keep you blind. Isabella fell to her knees on the cold gravel. It was all a lie. Every "I love you" from Lucas. Every family dinner. The entire 5 years of her life. She hadn't been a wife. She had been a prisoner of war, unaware there was even a war being fought. They killed them, she sobbed, the tears finally breaking through her shock. And then they made me sleep in their house. And now you've destroyed their cash cow, Cole warned. With the Caldwells arrested, the lithium deal is dead in the water. Hearst is going to lose billions. He's going to know it was you. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Clang! A bullet sparked off the metal shipping container, inches from Isabella's head. Get down! Cole shouted, tackling her. Another shot whizzed past, hitting the water. They found us! Cole grunted, dragging her behind a forklift. He pulled a rusted revolver from his waistband. "Go! Run to the east gate. There's an alleyway." "I can't leave you," Isabella screamed. "I'm dead anyway," Cole yelled, firing blindly into the dark. "Take the file. It's the only evidence that exists. Go!" Isabella scrambled to her feet. She clutched the envelope to her chest and ran. Her heels broke, so she kicked them off, running barefoot over the sharp stones and glass. Behind her, she heard 2 more shots, then a heavy silence. She didn't stop. She ran until her lungs burned, dodging through the labyrinth of containers. She burst out onto a side street, breathless and terrified. A black SUV screeched around the corner, its headlights sweeping the street. Isabella ducked behind a dumpster, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She was being hunted. The police couldn't help her. Hearst owned them. The media wouldn't listen. Hearst controlled the narrative. She looked at the phone in her hand. She had one ally left. She dialed Henry Baxter. "Henry," she whispered when he answered, her voice trembling. "They killed him. They killed the detective." "Where are you?" Henry's voice was instantly alert. No jokes now. "I'm in an alley off 9th Street. Henry, it's Senator Hearst. He's the king." There was a long pause on the line. "Henry?" "Isabella," Henry said, his voice sounding strange, strained. "Listen to me very carefully. Do not go to your apartment. Do not go to the police." "I know, I'm sending a car for you," Henry interrupted. "But you need to understand something. Hearst isn't just a politician. He's my brother-in-law." Isabella froze. "What?" "I didn't know he was involved in the hits," Henry said quickly. "I swear to you, we hate each other. But if he knows you have that file, he will burn the entire city to get it back." "Can I trust you?" Isabella asked, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "You made me $1 billion tonight, Isabella," Henry said, "and I hate Hearst more than I love money. Yes, you can trust me. But you need to disappear. Tonight." Isabella hung up. She looked at the file in her hands, the evidence of a decade-old murder, the proof of corruption that went to the highest level of government. She wasn't just a divorced wife seeking revenge anymore. She was the most dangerous woman in America. As the rain poured down, washing away the makeup and the polish of the CEO she had pretended to be, Isabella Caldwell died. In her place, a warrior was born. She ripped the hem of her white trousers, tied her hair back with a piece of scrap wire, and stepped out into the night. She wouldn't wait for Henry's car. That was too risky. She had to go underground. She had to find the one person Senator Hearst couldn't buy. She walked toward the subway station, blending into the shadows. 3 days later, Isabella sat in the back of a dimly lit jazz bar in Harlem. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a cheap hoodie she had bought from a street vendor. Her hair was dyed jet black, cut even shorter. She was watching the TV mounted above the bar. "Manhunt continues for Isabella Caldwell," the news anchor announced. "The disgraced former wife of Lucas Caldwell is wanted for questioning regarding the murder of retired Detective Silas Cole, whose body was found at the Brooklyn Navy Yard 3 days ago." They had flipped it. Of course they had. Hearst had spun the narrative. Now, Isabella wasn't the hero who exposed corporate fraud. She was the unhinged ex-wife who had snapped and killed a cop. "Rough day?" the bartender asked, wiping down the counter. "You have no idea," Isabella muttered. She checked her watch. She was waiting for someone. Henry had given her a name before she went dark. A ghost. A man who specialized in problems that the law couldn't touch. His name was Dante. No last name. The door to the bar opened. A man walked in. He didn't look like a mercenary. He looked like a professor. tweed jacket, glasses, leather satchel. But the way he scanned the room, analyzing every exit, every threat, gave him away. He sat on the stool next to her. "The White Knight has fallen," he said softly, ordering a club soda. "I prefer the term tactical retreat," Isabella replied, not looking at him. "Henry says you have a file that can topple the next president," Dante said, "and he says you have $50 million in an offshore account that he set up for you." "I do," Isabella said. "I'm willing to pay whatever it takes." "I don't want your money," Dante said, sipping his soda. "Senator Hearst passed a bill last year that cut funding to the Veterans Hospital where my brother died. I want him destroyed." Isabella slid a USB drive across the counter. She had scanned the documents from Cole's file at an internet cafe before burning the originals. "This connects him to the hit on my parents," Isabella said. "But it's not enough. It's 10 years old. He'll claim it's forged. He'll claim Cole was corrupt." "We need a confession," Dante said, "or a current link." "I know where he keeps his leverage," Isabella said. "Lucas mentioned it once. When he was drunk, he said the senator has a vault. Not in a bank, in his private estate in the Hamptons. He calls it the archive. It's where he keeps the blackmail material he uses to control half the Senate. The Hamptons estate is a fortress," Dante warned. "Armed guards, motion sensors. It's suicide." Isabella turned to him. Her eyes were hard, devoid of the fear that had paralyzed her in the shipyard. "I spent 5 years in a snake pit, Dante. I learned how to walk without making a sound. I know the senator's schedule. He's hosting a fundraising gala this weekend, a masquerade ball." Dante smiled slowly. "A masquerade. How poetic." "I'm going in," Isabella said. "I'm going to get into that vault, and I'm going to live stream the contents to the world." "You'll need a team," Dante said. "I have you," Isabella said. "And I have one other person." "Who?" "Genevieve," Isabella said. Dante choked on his drink. "The pregnant mistress, the one who stole your husband." "The one who was abandoned by Lucas and left to face the media storm alone," Isabella corrected. "I saw her interview this morning. She's terrified. She's broke. The government seized the Caldwell assets. She has nothing." "And you think she'll help you?" "I think she hates them almost as much as I do right now," Isabella said. "And she has the retina scan access to the senator's estate. She was his niece's godmother." "It's a gamble," Dante said. "It's the only play we have." Isabella stood up. "Get the car. We're going to pay Genevieve a visit." At Senator Hearst's masquerade ball, Isabella and Genevieve, now unlikely allies, slipped into the shadows. While Dante hacked the security feed from the car, Genevieve led Isabella to the library. Trembling, the rejected mistress used her retina scan to open the hidden vault behind the fireplace. Inside lay the proof of every bribe and murder Hearst had committed to build his empire. Before they could secure the data, Hearst appeared with 2 armed guards. "You really are persistent," the senator sneered, leveling a gun at them. Thinking he had won, he confessed everything, admitting he ordered the hit on Isabella's parents 10 years ago to secure their lithium-rich land. "They were just overhead," he laughed, "just like you two." Isabella didn't flinch. She tapped her earpiece. "Did you get that, Dante?" In the ballroom, the music died. Hearst's face suddenly appeared on every giant projection screen, his confession echoing for the hundreds of elite guests. The feed was live to the world. Panic replaced Hearst's arrogance. As FBI sirens wailed outside, he lunged at Isabella with a letter opener. But Isabella, no longer the weak victim, disarmed him with a swift strike, leaving him cowering on the floor as agents burst in. 6 months later, justice was complete. Hearst and the Caldwells were rotting in prison cells. Standing by her parents' new marble headstone, Isabella said goodbye to the past. Genevieve arrived, holding a healthy baby boy, finally free to start a new life in Paris, thanks to Isabella's help. Isabella climbed into her limousine as the new CEO of the company she had saved. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a warrior. When a text arrived from Dante about a new corruption case, she smiled. The hunt was just beginning. The story of Isabella teaches us that dignity is not given. It is forged. The Caldwells and Senator Hearst thought they could throw her away like trash, but they forgot that diamonds are made under pressure. Isabella didn't just get revenge. She got justice, proving that no amount of money can hide the truth forever. She transformed from a discarded wife into a powerful force, saving not just herself, but the woman who replaced her. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate karma and revenge, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What would you have done in Isabella's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.